What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Collective Podcast. We're going to jump in to a section of our training inside of our program that we call the human algorithm, because so often what we see across the mortgage industry is we don't understand social media, and so we just vomit crap all over it, and then we wonder why it doesn't work. We convince ourselves that, man, I know social media works for that guy, but it just doesn't work for me. I'm just not made to do this. I'm not fit for this. But the reality is we're not being intentional about who we speak to. Because Shane, if you and I were going hunting and I show up with a big old bucket of cheeseburgers and you're going to go, bro, why did you bring all these cheeseburgers? And I'll go, Shane, I love cheeseburgers. So I just assume that the deer probably love cheeseburgers too. And you're going to laugh at me. And so would anyone else in that scenario. But that's what we do on social media. Because I like it, I post it, and we don't ever give a second thought to, is this actually what the person I'm trying to reach would want to consume? And we had a super interesting interaction the other day on one of our coaching calls. And so let's talk about what you uncovered with one of our clients the other day.
Yeah, so we were in one of our momentum groups. And so for those of you who don't know, our momentum groups meet every week, and it's very hard to create that level of consistency. And so sometimes you're the student, sometimes you're the teacher, sometimes you're the material, sometimes you're a combination of. And so I always ask permission before I go hard at people, because I just know that makes me uncomfortable. And one of our coaching clients, he's got a really good heart, but he's got really poor execution. And it's not his fault, because he grew up in mortgage. And so he was taught tactics and strategies and mindsets that I don't think they were ever the most effective, but you didn't have to use an effective strategy to make a lot of money in mortgage. And that's no longer really the case. And so this all started with a simple question. He said, I'm really strong on LinkedIn. I post on LinkedIn. And I said, who's your audience? And he goes, well, what do you mean? I go well, what was the intent of your posting? And I wasn't trying to be rude. I was trying to really drill in on what is your intent? Who are you trying to speak to? And it would be like a guy saying, I sell shoes. And I say, what kind of shoes do you sell? What do you mean? I sell shoes. Yeah. What type? Ballroom dancing shoes, tap dancing shoes? Because there's a very limited audience for those. General walking shoes. We talking about Skechers? What are we talking about here? And so that led us into a really cool 45-minute conversation that we're going to condense into about 15 minutes here, understanding who your avatar is, your audience, the need that they have. And when I say the need, first and foremost, we should always find the most important, the highest and best before we start to address the others. So for example, going back to your hunting analogy, who's your audience? You're like, I hunt deer. Okay. Well, what does the deer need? Well, it depends on the season. Sometimes they need food, but if they're in, I think, and I'm not a hunter. I've been once.
I'm not either. I don't even know why I use that.
It was bad, but let's go with it.
I mean, the analogy is good.
Let's say they're in, I think it's called the rut. And that's where they're in mating season, right? A male deer, it's an elk probably, right? They have a very different priority in that season than they do outside of that season. In that season, they're just looking to mate. That's all they want to do. And so the most important thing, I think, and again, hunters are going to blast us for this, whatever, call us.
We probably don't have any hunters listening to this call.
In that season, you need a very good elk call. It's not about bait. You're not trying to feed them. That's not their number one need. Their number one need is they need to find a female that they can mate with. They're wired differently in that season. It's no different in business.
Right.
What is the number one need of your audience? So first so we're going to actually have a worksheet that you guys can get from us to go through this. And I'm going to challenge my internal team every month to create a new worksheet. And here's the 4 questions. And I'm going to read them out and then let's dissect this.
Okay.
Who is your main audience? And when I say who's your main audience, it's just who's your audience, because you would never market to your third most important audience before your first. Who's your audience / avatar? What is their need? Again, what is the most important need they have in this current market environment? Then third, What is the source of that audience? Where do they come from? Fourth, what is the most important need of that source? And so play this out. And we did on this call, and it was awesome. So for many of you, it's like, what's your number one audience? And again, if you haven't done this, it's why your social media sucks. And again, I'm not defining social media as being good or bad based on follower count. I'm defining that based on, is your business growing? Are you more profitable today, dollar per hour, doing social media than you were 12 months ago? If your dollar per hour hasn't doubled in your time in social media, you're just doing it wrong. And that's going to convert by direct messages, other things where people are generating business for you. Let's say your number one audience is first-time home buyers. Okay, what did they need? And here's the problem. Most of us in this industry have no clue. We'll say they need a loan. No, they don't. That's not their need. They get a loan. The outcome is they get a loan to address their need. What's the first-time home buyer's need? Well, if we're brainstorming, it's money. They need money, right? I mean, they obviously they need housing, right? Why do they need housing? Well, there's a number of reasons. If it's a VA first-time home buyer, they've probably been relocated because of the military, probably for the first time, and they don't want to live on base. So their number one need is get me the hell off base. Right. Okay. Do they want a mortgage? No. No one wants a mortgage, although there's some, the propeller heads will be like, well, Shane, you can leverage money by borrowing at a lower interest. That's all true. Sure. But there's other ways to do that without getting a residential mortgage. They don't want a mortgage. They want a place where they can have some peace and quiet. They want, and many probably want something that they own, something they control. I'm tired of being told what to do 24/7. I get told what to do when I'm on base. I don't want to be told what to do when I'm off base. Regular first-time home buyers, a guy like me, when I was a first-time home buyer, I wanted to start building wealth. And what I had always been told was buy a house, build wealth. And so I'm like, I want to build wealth. So I bought a little house in Seattle. I actually had to split the house with my stepbrother because I couldn't afford it on my own. He wanted to do the same thing. He didn't want to pay rent, sort of wanted to build wealth. Okay. So that's a need. I need to build wealth. So then your product should address their need. Your product is, I have a wealth builder loan that you can leverage with little to no money down to start building wealth. Could be a DPA loan. Again, they don't want the DPA loan. They want to build wealth. Right. So that's steps 1 and step 2. Identify the need. We can go into this more. I just want to give some brief examples. So first-time home buyer, their need is maybe wealth creation, maybe stability, maybe something of their own, getting out of the apartment. Maybe first-time home buyer and wife's pregnant. They need more space. Again, they don't want debt. They need more space. They want to build their dreams with their family. Yep. What is the source of the first-time home buyer? Well, you might say, well, you can find them at trade shows. I can find them at my church. They're going to be doing down payment assistance programs. Okay, those are all secondary sources. What is the main source of first-time home buyers? And it's one of two things, either consumer direct, where you're tactically, strategically going out and searching for those people, which is not most in our industry. Right. For most people, the source is real estate agents. And then we get to step 4. What is the most important need of the real estate agent? And if you can address the most important need of the real estate agent, the byproduct, the outcome is they're going to give you more first-time home buyers. What do? We try to create videos for first-time home buyers, and then we drag ourselves up the hill and maybe close an extra deal or two, but we're exhausted. And then what we'll say is our videos don't work. Direct messaging doesn't work. LinkedIn doesn't work. Classes doesn't work. The reality is it's because you're not getting to the source. Yeah. If you get to the source, real estate agents, and you effectively address their needs, they will throw first-time home buyers at you. Yep. And so on our accountability call, one of our members, he gets on the call and he goes, I never had to work with real estate agents ever, but now I need to work with real estate agents. And in my market, they don't ever show up at the office. And I said to him, are you telling me, and again, not because I have an ego, but because I have the blueprint. You're telling me that if I went into your town, Dallas, with my blueprint, I couldn't get 5 agents to work with me. And he's like, well, agents just don't meet in the office anymore. They're not out and doing that because of COVID. And I said, okay. So I know their needs. They need to make more money. They want to make more money. And there's a number of ways to do that. So what do they want? They want leads. They don't want a lead. They want to make more money. If I could give them money without having to work with a lead, they would take the money over the lead. They want money.
Yep.
So, okay. So then I said, well, if an agent wants more money, I need to become somebody who helps them make more money. And so then I started creating products. I said to this guy, I said, so you're telling me that if I created an AI bot that they could have for free, that would help them create viral content out of the content they already create, that would get to first-time homebuyers at a 10x rate, that would generate more money for them, they wouldn't be willing to have coffee with me? He's like, well, I mean, if you did that, they might. I go, okay. So you're telling me that if I created a webinar series that I launched live 7 days a week that taught them how to create viral blogs that they could use through Google SEO, increase their ranking, that they could go from having to go out and beg their friends and family for deals to having people reach out to them because they create educational content, that they wouldn't want to meet with me? And I said, Bob, I'll bet you $100,000 that I could come into your town with an effective blueprint and I could easily get 5 agents that told you no to having coffee to have coffee with me.
Yeah.
And again, all of that gets back to the original outcome. What is my need as an originator? I need more loans to make more money. I need more first-time homebuyers because that's the audience that I really want to go after. And I do that by addressing the need of the source. If you get to the source and you address the need of the source, they will give you what you need. The outcome, the byproduct will be they will give you what you need and want. But we don't intentionally break this down. We don't, and we went through this very, very quickly. I mean, the guy on our call, actually, his number one audience the source of that audience wasn't even real estate agents.
Right.
So he came into the call saying, I got to meet with more agents in Dallas and I don't know how to do it. By the end of the call, we realized his audience was high net worth individuals. They have some very unique needs. We designed some things, ideas that would help address their needs. The source of high net worth people, the number one source, the primary source, was actually wealth managers. And they said, on our call of small groups, it's 5 to 6 people. And they were saying, well, it's accountants, it's CPAs. I go, no. They want to manage they want their wealth managed. Now, maybe a CPA doing that, but it's a wealth manager, right? And yes, some of it's, so I said, so you need wealth managers, CPAs, you need attorneys, these are the people that wealthy people have in their pocket, their back pocket. So the source of a high net worth individual, the number one source is a wealth manager. What do they need? Well, they need the audience that you want to not take their money out of their management. So how do you address their number one need? Like, wealth managers make more money having more money in wealth management. It's a pretty simple, equation. Yeah. More money invested, they get a higher return every year. So they want you, the wealthy person, to keep your money invested with them. How do we help them do that? We keep the potential clients' money invested. Don't pay cash for things. Again, it goes back to leverage. And you need to speak a different language with a different type of avatar, a different type of audience. And so by the time we were done with this call dissecting this guy got excited on the call, because what he realized is the things he actually enjoys doing, going to really nice bars in Carrollton, going to South Lake for dinner, having dinner parties at his house where he brings in somebody to serve everybody while he cooks these like homemade pizzas and these different things, that actually aligns with that audience and the source far better than trying to cold call real estate agents to meet them at an office that nobody attends.
Yeah. This goes back to, one of the previous episodes we did was all about ego. And what ego says is, what's in this for me? How do I get the most out of my effort? When what this is teaching is, how do I put myself into the shoes of the people I want to ultimately serve? What did they wake up wanting today? What did they wake up struggling with? And how do I show up with a lifeline for that? Knowing that if I help others get what they want, I'm always going to get what I want, right? That's a famous Zig Ziglar quote. And that is how simple this is. And this might actually be why a sabbatical would be valuable to somebody listening right now. Because if you don't have clarity around who you want to serve, you need to go lock yourself in a room for a day and force yourself to answer all these questions that have everything to do with other people so that you can actually begin providing things of value. And it's amazing, Shane, when we do that, people will start showing up.
The challenge that people have, myself included, is I got to the point where I could process this because I worked with multiple coaches over the years. Your brain is a muscle and you have to train that muscle to think differently. I listen to a ton of Audible books. I'm constantly engaging the brain and trying to just be better. I was joking with you this morning that I'm starting to read books on how to run a business because what I used to say to people is I didn't go to college, to be a, business owner. Well, I can get educated on that. So I need to do that now. And that's some humility saying, hey, instead of saying what you've always said, I don't know anything about business. I was just a fireman. You can do that. Or you can say, what a bunch of amazing resources I have at my disposal to be a better business owner and operator. It's no different with this. And so the challenge would be most people who have never exercised this muscle, this really deep dive into designing your avatar and the blueprint for success, you're going to have to get with a third party. You're going to have to get with somebody. You're going to have to get in a room digitally or in person with somebody who can help navigate that journey with you.
Right.
Because you're typically not just going to do that on your own. Because again, and we talked about this on our podcast about ego, that was a blind spot for this coaching client. His blind spot was, I'm just going to say what everyone else says because I hear it enough that it must be true. I need more real estate agents. They just never meet in person anymore. And I violently rejected that. And you've been on a couple of these calls with me and you're like, bro, that was awkward.
Yeah, it's real awkward.
But it's important.
100%.
It's so important that we show up and the people in your life that you're paying or that you're trusting with your time show up and speak into your blind spot. And blind spots can be awkward. Having those conversations can be uncomfortable. But it was so cool to see this coaching client come out of that session going, I have the basic understanding of what he needs to do, a lot more refinement. He needs to go take a sabbatical. He needs to work this out, whiteboard this, really get into a place where, again, we like to connect these concepts because they're so important, but this goes back to being in my flow state.
Yep.
If I like working with high net worth people, if I enjoy that, if I resonate with that, if I can identify with that or understand that audience really, really well, and I know what they need, and I know the source of that group, and I know what they need, I'm then doing things that I'm good at that make me money, that I enjoy, that bless other people. That's Ikigai. Right. And when you do that, ego has no room in that equation to show up.
Guys, if you didn't learn something on this episode, I'm going to go ahead and say it's not Shane's fault. You should probably rewind it and take a second listen. If you want to be a part of a coaching program that isn't just feeding your ego, that isn't just teaching you the things you already know, that isn't pushing you to get outside of your comfort zone, we want you to be a part of what we're doing at The Collective. You can go to thecollectivecoaching.com to get more information. Reach out to us if we can help you with anything. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, guys.